Welcome into the Blogger Bowl. We're here for conference championship previews, but most importantly, Corporate Phil is back. As you can see in the name tag, Corporate Phil has carved out a few minutes in his very busy schedule with us. He even got the nice sweater. He's looking all professional for us. Can't rock the home field apparel like Dan to work, I guess.
I'm wearing a T-shirt.
Same. Phil, how we doing?
Well, good.
What's it? Holy Cross, still ready.
Yeah. Big game this weekend.
What do you think? Hey, it took under 50 seconds because I had to get it in my limited amount of time that Holy Cross is in a second round matchup versus the mighty foes of the UNH
Wildcats.
Sure.
Yep,
how are we supposed to do?
That's actually they should win. Although the Colonial kind of kicked a lot of ass on Saturday, so
we'll see. UNH looked pretty. Their offense looked pretty good. So that one's going to be. I haven't done like a deep dive into that, but Holy Cross is going to win by 30.
Love it. There you go. We've got it.
Now that we got the. I was going to go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I was just going to say. So I want to tell the story real quick because we're talking about it off air. Said I'm not super psyched about really any of the games this weekend, as kind of sarcastically, because you put a stupid game on the schedule and then suddenly my brain fixates on it. So if you're unaware, New Mexico State is playing Valparaiso this week. And if you're like, wait, Valpo, aren't they the team that hit the buzzer beater in the NCAA tournament that one year? It's like, yeah, you didn't even know they had a football team. So basically, New Mexico State, they're supposed to play San Jose State earlier in the year. Sadly, the game got postponed because a San Jose State player passed away the week of the game. So they postponed it indefinitely. But New Mexico State, they wanted to play an extra game. So they're 5-6, but this doesn't count towards bowl eligibility because they already played Lamar, who's an FCS team, and you can only count one FCS win. They just wanted to play a 12th game. They wanted to fulfill, another game for season ticket holders. They wanted to give like a proper senior day to their seniors. So they just went searching for a game and called up an FCS team who hasn't played in 2 weeks to be like, hey, you want to come out to Las Cruces and play us this week? And they're like, sure. An assistant at New Mexico State played at Valpo. I'm assuming that's kind of how that ball started rolling. This is the latest in the calendar year that Valparaiso has ever played a football game. They've never played a game in the month of December. They play in the Pioneer League, which is a non-scholarship league. So they do not give football scholarships. They are one of the worst teams in FCS. New Mexico State at WinBet laying 29 points. Lay them and laugh. I'm going to roll with my guys from New Mexico State.
How pissed off would you be if you were like a Valpo, like junior or sophomore who like had to go, thought your season was over? You're like, all right, like deep breath, like we're good. We're out of the woods. And it's like, no, we have to fly across the country to New Mexico to lose by 30. I would be so senior, maybe okay, you get an extra game for your career, fine. But if you're like a junior or a sophomore or freshman, like, what the fuck? You're making us do this? I would be so mad.
I will say if you're Valpo, you quite literally have nothing at all to lose. So I hope they go at this with just a wild game plan. Like that's what I would if I was a coach. Like trick plays, wild game plans, like just make it as stupid as you possibly can be.
Yeah, I mean
that's the only way to approach it.
Go to the back page of the playbook there to pull out stuff that although I'm sure they haven't been practicing for 2 weeks, so who knows? It's just going to be stupid. I can't wait. But nevertheless, we have limited time with Phil, so we're going to launch into it. If we talked about it the other day, here's how this is going to work. We're going to go over all 10 of the conference championship games. We're going to give a pick for each one. And we'll keep track of it. And the tiebreaker is going to be, we are going to give what we think the total points in the non-conference championship Akron-Buffalo game, which is at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Folks, we have mid-afternoon Maction.
I can't wait.
Tomorrow, Akron and Buffalo. So let's get into it. We'll start.
Might just live stream that game on the Blogger Bowl watching by myself.
We could do it. You want to do a halftime stream of that game, Matt? You and me?
Oh God! Bring Andy on there too. Just see what stupid bets he comes up with.
A deep dive. All right. So our first one up, we have the Conference USA title game, North Texas at UTSA. This game is at the Alamo Dome tomorrow night, 7:30. UTSA is an 8.5-point favorite. The total 69.5. These two teams played earlier this year. It was a game that I think was 13-10 entering the fourth quarter, and then they scored 35 points in the fourth quarter and traded the lead 3 times in the final 2.5 minutes. Phil, you haven't been with us a while. What are you looking for? What is your bet here? What is your pick for the Conference USA title game?
So it's like the over-under scares me a lot, like the total of 69.5 based on the last performance. So I'm looking at the under, staying away from the spread, but going with the meet Roadrunners because I feel like they've kind of been there before and won last year. So I'm rolling with the Roadrunners and keeping the momentum going from last year. I think they have obviously a little bit more to play for, just in general, being a higher ranked team and hopefully carrying the momentum into next year. So I would smash the under. And just because of how wonky that game was last year and like about 70, I just don't see it getting there. So that's under UTSA outright.
I desperately want to take the over because I think on a Conference USA game on a Friday night, like, of course I want to bet an over 69.5. And actually, if you look at like the point totals, I know they had the slower first three quarters. They also put up 35 points in a quarter against each other. And both teams averaging, I think, 34 and then 31 points a game. That said, I'm going to stick with UTSA. They're playing really, really well. I think they put up 34 plus points in their last three games. The offense is kind of starting to roll. Give me them laying the 8.5. I'm not in on North Texas.
All right, so I'm changing my bet here because I'm going to roll with the under in this game. And I know you talked about
Boo.
That's a lot of they scored a lot of points, but basically what North Texas did in that game, they basically said we are not going to let Frank Harris beat us down the field. Their entire game plan was to keep everything in front of them, and it worked for three quarters, and then it got wonky in the fourth quarter. 69.5 is a lot. I'd assume they're going to try to do the same thing. Both teams are a little banged up. The skill position on both sides of both teams here. So I'm going to go with the under 69.5 there. I would lean North Texas a little bit on the side, but that one also scares me, and I just wouldn't be able to live with myself if this game went under and UTSA covered. So I'm just going to change my bet and go under 69.5 there. The other game tomorrow night, slightly bigger. You could argue perhaps the only game with playoff implications this entire weekend. The Pac-12 title game, number 12 Utah against number 4 USC at 8 p.m. tomorrow night. USC 2.5-point favorites. The total 67.5. A chance for the Trojans to avenge their only loss of the season. Matt, what's your pick?
I've gone back and forth on what I want to do here. There's so many different scenarios I could see playing. I wouldn't go near the under. Could it hit? Sure, but I'm not going to go near it. I'm leaning towards Utah with the points. I think Kyle Whittingham getting a second shot at Caleb Williams, and I think that's a really smart defensive staff. And I know that defensively they haven't been very good this year, but I think they're really, really well coached. I think the offense is good if they're getting healthier. I don't know. My gut is for whatever reason saying take the points with Utah, so I'm going to go with Utah. But this is something like if USC goes out wins by 2 scores and stamps their way to a playoff, I wouldn't be shocked. But I'm gonna slightly lean Utah here. I'm rooting for some chaos.
Phil, what do you got?
So initially, I've gone back and forth in this game a lot, and I'm going to go grudge Phil in this one. So if you look at Caleb Williams, he did a Heisman pose when they went up like 10 against Notre Dame, and then also had FUCKND painted on his fingernails. And so I'm just kind of like, why are you going to hot dog it right now? And so I, again, think Caleb Williams is awesome, but I'm going to go grudge Phil in this one. And think that the hardest thing to do is to beat a team twice. And I'm just going to not use that logic and say that Utah.
Oh, no, it's 3 times. It's 3 times. Twice is okay. It's 3 times.
It's 3 times. So, yeah, you can't be.
Yeah, 3 times. That's the same.
Again, logic would say go USC, grudge Phil coming off of last week in the game versus Notre Dame. Also, I think there is something special about being spoiler and playing spoiler in these types of moments. And USC were riding high on their Super Bowl kind of like last week versus Notre Dame. It seemed to be kind of like dancing on graves, so the game wasn't ever like totally out of reach. So, I'm gut punch just staying away from the total. I'm just going taking Utah on spread.
So just to clear something up real quick, apparently it's not the first time he has apparently he paints his nails for every game. He did the horns upside down when they played when he was at Oklahoma last year, and there was another one where I think he put FUCK on his fingers against someone else. I don't remember who it was. So I feel
like UCLA would have done better because that matches up all the fingernails.
Well, yeah, thumbs, and maybe he did. We just didn't see it at the time. Maybe we didn't see it at the time. I actually think USC is going to win this game. I do. I think they're going to get their revenge. I think neutral site. I think they probably would have won the game at a neutral site the first time around. Austin Jones has shown that he is very capable of filling the role of Travis Dye. I also need them to play well just to make sure that nothing wonky happens to my Caleb Williams 15-1 Heisman ticket. However, I don't want to bet on that. So I'm just betting on points. Give me the over 67.5 here. These are two teams.
Might need to find a Dalton Kincaid over receptions prop too after the 16 he put up.
I haven't USC's defense still kind of assy. Utah's defense not been able to stop the run this year. They put up a lot of points the first time they played, so I'm just going to go with the over there. The only
Sure.
the only other conference championship game that might have any kind of implication for the playoff, I think TCU is I actually don't think TCU is a lock. They should be a lock. Nevertheless, they can put it to rest as they take on number 13 Kansas State at Jerry Jones's Palatial Estate in Arlington at noon on Saturday. TCU a 2.5-point favorite, a 61.5-point total. Phil, where are you going here?
I want to see the Horned Frogs in the college football playoff. And again, I believe they should be a lock even if they lose this game. But just because perception of TCU in the national media is not the same, I think this is a must-win game for them. So I think this game means everything in the world to them. Kansas State, I think it means something to them too. But this is truly, I think, a year that TCU will get it done. So I'm taking TCU out here. I know Max just won. The quarterback just won the quarter. What was the award again? It was like the best quarterback, but also leadership. Yeah. It wasn't the best quarterback.
He won something. I remember. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name anymore. Conn Smythe won.
the Davy Crockett Award he won this week.
Sure.
But I'm rocking with them. I love what Sonny Dykes has done. I want to see a lot of points in this game. So if I'm betting anything in this game, I'm just betting the over.
I have no idea. I'm going to lean the over here because the first time these two teams played, both teams could score, and Kansas State was scoring until their quarterback got hurt. I think TCU is in unless they lose by 2 scores. If they lose by 14 to a team that, the first time they played, yes, they beat, but was probably looking like they were losing until there was a quarterback injury. I think that's probably reason enough for a committee to keep them out. If it's a last-second field goal, I think they still hang on and stay in the playoffs, probably drop down to the 4 spot. I'm looking for points in this one. I think Kansas State's offense is really good. I think TCU's offense is really good. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks. It's a Big 12 championship game. Let's take it over.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I am too. I'm going to take the over. I'm like, Kansas State should have won the first time they played. If Will Howard stays healthy in this game, you would think that they are very live to win it. I have no thoughts one way or another what's going to happen there. So I'm just going to roll with an over here and hope that we, like you said, we get to see some points in this game because that would be pretty spectacular. The undercard at noon for some, but not for all, our beloved MAC conference, Toledo versus Ohio. I'm going to go on a rant real quick because I'm trying to keep this tight.
Love it.
Like, dude.
No, rant away. If there's one game that's worth a rant, it's a MAC show.
All I'm going to say is, dude, it's the fucking MAC championship. Why is this not outside in the weather? Why are we playing?
I feel like if you're going to do it somewhere, though, like Ford Field in Detroit is like MAC football.
It's indoors, though, man. Like, this should be in the elements. MAC football
been there forever, though.
They should have done it. They should have done it in Indy and opened the roof up.
Roof open.
They should just do it like Progressive Field, like the Guardian Stadium. Just
exactly.
Do it baseball
like
field.
A high school stadium in Detroit. Really.
Or no, they should play it at in whatever the Brown Stadium is called now. With fucking
First Energy or whatever.
With the elf.
Brownie the elf.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, Toledo taking on Ohio. Toledo is in Ohio. Toledo a 1.5-point favorite. 54.5 is the total. Matt's taking a sip. So Phil.
No, you're good. I'm good.
Matt, you go ahead. What are you taking? We know your system.
Ohio. I'm taking the points with Ohio. I like Ohio. They haven't let me down yet. This is a strictly Maction system play of underdogs overs in Ohio. So I'm going to take Ohio, and if I get a second pick, I'll take the over. But I think we said one pick, so I'm going to go with Ohio here. Also, bigger travesty, not that they're playing this indoors, but the fact that this isn't Friday night. This game has always been like a Friday night, Thursday night game.
They should change their schedule so they can play it on a Wednesday.
Yeah, like that's actually a bigger miss is the fact that this wasn't played last night.
It should be played in weather and no first day.
Or next Wednesday. Or a week from yesterday. Like Wednesday after college football.
Just ignore the bowl.
Although they have to put the bowls together, so it goes.
Guys, it's
although
fine.
you can just say winner goes to this one, loser goes to that one.
It's not that hard.
Phil, what do you got here?
So I'm looking at just more recency bias. If you look, Ohio's on a 7-game win streak. Toledo has lost 3 out of their last 5 games. I think Ohio just gets it done.
Eastern Michigan is not good. Also, Toledo lost to Western Michigan. I've watched them play some football this year. They're bad.
Western Michigan just fired their coach too. And the two games that they won, they squeaked out a 3-point win against Eastern Michigan and a 7-point game against Ball State. I just see Ohio, the Bobcats, rolling on this one or pouncing on this one.
Go Cats!
So I'm going to even put it out there. Screw the spread, dude. Give me the Bobcats outright.
Yeah.
Ohio money line plus 115. That's what I'm betting. I can't even remember the name of their backup quarterback. I looked it up earlier and forgot already, but
I don't either, but he played awesome in their last game
like
against
Curtis Rourke's out,
Ball
Nathan
State.
Rourke's playing in
Bowling
Canada,
Green
Tanner
too, yeah.
Roark is a baseball pitcher. None of them are going to be playing in this game, but the backup for Ohio played very well. I mean, Bowling Green's not very good. I get it. Ohio 9-3 against the spread this year. Toledo 4-8 against the spread. So Ohio kind of been an overachiever. Toledo been an underachiever. I'm going to roll with the Bobcats.
We're a Bobcat show.
There's a trio of games at 4 p.m., but the Sun Beast was smart. The Sun Beast moved theirs up to 3:30. 3:30, the Sun Belt Conference Championship game, Coastal Carolina at Troy. This is a campus site, 3:30 p.m. Troy, an 8.5-point favorite. The total, 48.5. Yesterday, Jamie Chadwell said that they hope that Grayson McCall can play. This is the 3 week of the 3 to 6 week time frame from his leg injury, but he said if the game had been yesterday, he would not be able to play. So they're hopeful, but it doesn't seem like it's going to necessarily happen, which would probably explain why Troy is an 8.5-point favorite. Phil, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, without McCall here, I think the Chanticleers are dead in the water. I mean, they just got an absolutely just beat to a living pulp by James Madison. And that's tough to rebound from if you don't have a change of scenery. So if you don't have that change of scenery moment with your, quarterback who's led you for the past 2 years coming back in glory fashion, I don't see this winning. So unless something changes with his health and he is playing, even if he's injured, I think he gets that like adrenaline boost and could make this game tight and could potentially win it for Coastal. I'm going with Troy here. The 8.5 still scares me because it's a championship game. So I would, no, if McCall's not playing, I'm going Troy minus 8.5. Stamp it.
Yeah, I'm going to take Troy pretty big just because I can't trust Coastal if the quarterback's not playing. We saw what they look like without him the last couple of weeks, especially last week getting killed. Troy's played pretty well the last couple of weeks, winning by multiple scores in their last 2 games. So give me Troy in this one. Like you said, 8.5 is a lot for a championship game, but if a starting quarterback's out, that's just, especially one as good as Grayson McCall and how much he means to that team.
Man, this is super lame, but we're all in agreement here. Jarrett Guest started at quarterback against James Madison, 10 of 23 for 99 yards, a touchdown and an interception. More importantly, for how that offense operates, they ran for 90 yards and 2.3 yards per carry. James Madison has a very good defense, but so does Troy. Yeah, if our guy Grayson McCall is not playing, I'm not super optimistic what's going to happen there. I'm going to actually move the order just a little bit. I'm going to save the SEC for the last of the 4 o'clock games. So let's go to the All-American, the American Athletic Conference, UCF at 18, Tulane at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Tulane, a 3.5-point favorite. The total, 56.5. This is a rematch of a game that was like 3 weeks ago. Phil, what are you thinking?
So this is like the kind of reverse double-sided jinx of the interim coach bump, where you assumed the coach was going to be leaving Tulane. He is not. Signed an extension, is staying here. Insert the Wolf of Wall Street gif. I'm not going anywhere. I think that's what it is. I don't know. We're not leaving. And so I think teams do rally around that when a coach had an opportunity to leave, to go to bigger and greener pastures and decided to say, screw that. I'm staying and riding with my guys here. So I'm taking that all the way to the bank. And I think Tulane rolls in this one. Weird thing I've been doing this week, there's been some slight potential rumors of Notre Dame looking at Michael Pratt. So I've been actually going through and looking at his highlights. So I've been deep in Michael Pratt highlights this week, and I'm turned into a Michael Pratt fan from Tulane. So I'm riding with my recency bias of looking at Michael Pratt's highlights on YouTube, as well as the reverse double jinx interim actually staying coach bounce.
Give me the over in this one. I'm going to take the over. I just think there's going to be a lot of points. There were a lot of points in the last one, 38-31. I know some of them were a little bit later in the game, garbage time. But both of these teams can score. They're both averaging just under 35 points a game. Defenses are fine, but like in the games where they've actually played more competitive teams, they're still allowing 20-plus points a game. So give me the over in this one. I'm expecting a back and forth, and not quite similar to last one. I think it'll be closer than the last game where UCF kind of controlled it. But give me the over.
So I watched Tulane. I watched a lot of this game the first time they played, and I watched UCF run for 336 yards and mostly dominate this game. And this was in Tulane. Game day was this was one of the biggest games of the day and the biggest game that Tulane had in a million years. And I'm still taking Tulane. It's a hard overhead pick. They haven't been to a major bowl game since the 1940 Sugar Bowl. I've talked about it a couple of times on the show. Just like a team of destiny. I think the Willie Fritz thing does matter. I think that's going to give them a boost here. It's probably not the smartest decision in the world. Like I said, I just watched Central Florida just run all over them. But nevertheless, I'm going to roll with it.
And wait, do we know what shade of blue and green the Tulane is wearing?
I don't like their last game. The last time they played, didn't they have the dark green with like the light blue helmets? I didn't like that combination.
Because
I didn't like it.
They have some of my favorite uniforms in college football. I'm trying to see.
They're wearing the baby blue.
Ooh, crispy.
Like, all baby blue?
I don't know. I just know they're wearing the blue top. The video today only showed the jersey, not the pants. I think it might be the white.
Okay.
But nevertheless,
I like that then. I do like that uniform combination. I think that
does matter.
That lends towards Tulane. It does matter. Look good, feel play good.
Moving on to the Mountain West Conference, also at 4 p.m. Fresno State on the blue turf at Boise. Boise, a 3.5-point favorite. The total is 54.5. Phil, where are we going?
I'm sticking with the blue turf. Don't bet against the blue turf. Going with Boise minus 3.5.
I'm going to go under. I know Fresno State hasn't been playing without Jake Haynard. Boy, I just this game in my head, these two teams in a Mountain West championship game on the blue turf at 4 o'clock where it gets dark late just feels like an under. It feels like a defensive battle, a defensive back and forth. I think that's a lot of points for these two teams. So I'm going to take the under.
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm going the under here. It just feels like Boise State's a good defensive team playing at home. They like to run the ball a lot. So
yeah,
it feels like Boise State just playing at home. This is going to be a little bit slower slog of a game than Fresno State might want to play. Then the big 4 o'clock game in Atlanta, Georgia, beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. The first of back-to-back games that the University of Georgia are going to play in this stadium. If they win this game, number 14 LSU against number 1 Georgia. Georgia, an 18.5-point favorite. The total at FanDuel was 50.5, which is important for my bet, as I didn't realize that. But total 50.5. Phil, what do you like to happen here?
Again, going Grungeville here. I'm actually gonna go. I like Georgia to win outright. I think they're gonna play extremely sound.
Really going out on a limb there. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I know. But the Grungeville of me really wanted to do Georgia 18.5, but I think LSU does make this competitive. Brian Kelly is historically good at making these types of games like relatively close without actually ever being that close. Whether it's a late score, or whether it's a slow starting first half. I don't think this is going to be what we saw against Tennessee, but I think Georgia's defensive front and I think Georgia's speed at linebacker is really going to slow down LSU's quarterback running. It's just really what it boils down to. I mean, he's fast as shit, but at the same time, I think he's going to see just a really elite level of speed on the D-line in the second level, which will help contain him, which I think a lot of their success has been due to some of those broken plays. LSU's playing a lot better, but I mean, you can't go in a just must-win situation and lose to that. I'm really curious to see what this LSU team and Brian Kelly's motivation is made of in this game, because coming off of a game where it's like if you win and then win this week, you'd probably be in the college football playoff. To have just lay an egg against the least hot team in the country in Texas A&M. I know we said we wouldn't talk about Texas A&M, had to bring it up once. So it's an interesting spot for Brian Kelly, and I think it'll be a kind of interesting stamp on a season. Like if they go in there and get run off the field in an embarrassing fashion, people will look at the season very differently than they did about a week and a half ago.
I'm on Georgia here too, not necessarily even like a grudge pick. We talked about Ohio State several times, like kind of waiting for them to flip the switch and how they played with their food a lot. Obviously they couldn't do that this year. Georgia at times has played with their food, but they've also flipped the switch when they've had to. Like Georgia Tech, they're playing with their food. They flip the. I love using that saying. They flip the switch. They win that. It's 38-14. Tennessee comes into town. Obviously, the offense slowed down in the second half, but if it's not raining, they probably win that game 41-13 as opposed to 27-13. Like when they have to in big moments, they've gotten up and they've just absolutely dominated teams. LSU, after the Alabama one, which they played really, really well in, and I think those are the types of games that Brian Kelly coaches really well in at home. Phil, I'm going to kind of argue back with you a little bit. Like in postseason games in these big spots, Brian Kelly's teams haven't really come to play. I mean, you look at the two playoff games, they've gotten blown out in both and kind of coached a little bit like scared, more conservative, not to lose than to win. That's not how you're going to beat Georgia. LSU the last couple of weeks, obviously they lost A&M, they blew out UAB, whatever. But the week before that, they barely survived Arkansas and their backup quarterback on the road. Like, I don't think LSU's playing all that good. And I think Georgia, like, it's go time for Georgia. Like, all right, cool. This is the postseason. Let's go get the 1 seed. Let's go win this. Like everything they want. I think everything they want is in front of them. This is kind of where they wake up and take it.
Yeah. When with like it's just the more I'm talking about it, like I'm just so curious if LSU turns into a folding chair this weekend, right? Because it's like, do they actually have an intrinsic motivation for this game? Or are they just like, our playoff chances are gone. We're playing against a better team. We lost to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Or can Brian Kelly motivate this group? For me, it's a really interesting kind of motivational type game to see how Brian Kelly can get these guys ready for a game that would be very easy to brush aside for them.
Yeah. For me, this is not about. This has nothing to do with LSU. With all due respect to Brian Kelly and what they've done, I think the phrase Matt used, "play with their food," we've used a lot with Georgia, and I think that's been the case. Basically, since the Tennessee game, they've been bored, and they've played like a team that's been bored. And this game matters to them. So Georgia hasn't won the SEC since 2017, and unless there's like a COVID super senior on the roster, that means that nobody on this roster, or at least nobody who played in that game in 2017, has won the SEC. And that matters. And that matters a lot in that part of the country. A lot of the times they think that winning that league is more important than winning the national championship, because if you win that league, you've won the best league in the country. Everything else doesn't matter. Obviously, that has changed over time, but it's still a very important thing for them. I also think that, like I said, if they win this game, they are locked into the 1 seed. They are going to be at home in the Peach Bowl, de facto at home in the Peach Bowl again, which is going to give them another advantage that they really are going to want to take advantage of. I'm not going to lay the points because that's a lot of points. So I'm going to go with the under here because I think this is going to be a game for the Georgia defense to flex. There's going to be a chance
similar to like an Oregon type, not quite Oregon, Georgia, but like something like that where it's 38-10 and it's never really close, like 31-10, something where it's just kind of never really close.
Exactly. Like I think Georgia's going to dominate this game, and maybe that means they're just going to cover. That would be great. But so apparently, according to our breaking news in the chat, I'm going to have to actually correct Phil. New Mexico State is bowl eligible. Their waiver got approved, but they made a bowl
second time
4 years ago. I told the story on the show.
Misread the alert.
Told you the story about the cookies they sent Scott Van Pelt, but second time in 61 years, awesome for them, and they get to
go for some cookies
on Valparaiso. That's going to give them even more motivation to beat up on Valparaiso. I have no idea. So give me the under, though, in the SEC championship game. We have 2 games at night. It's very sad. We only have 2 night games. We'll start in Charlotte as number 10 Clemson takes on unranked North Carolina, who is just in the middle of a free fall right now. 8 p.m. on Saturday. Clemson, 7.5 point favorite. Total 63.5. Phil, what do you got?
Why do these teams like kind of stink right now, huh?
They do.
Which is
couldn't they have been playing better towards this to at least make this game a little bit more intriguing?
I know because
that means that Clemson might have a shot to make the playoff, and nobody wants that.
Sure.
So I'm glad.
Why is Clemson still like 10? I guess it's just a Clemson.
Their name.
Yeah, and North Carolina, like I don't know what kind of has happened to them because they've been playing pretty inconsistent all year, but Drake May has been just exciting to watch. So in this one with a battle of 2 just not great teams right now, I'm actually going to go with who I think is going to be the best player on the field, and Drake May. Staying away from the spread. I think it's going to be really tight. But I think North Carolina will make more plays on offense with Josh Downs and Drake May than Clemson will be able to make on offense, despite UNC secondary just being abysmal. We'll know pretty quick in this game. If North Carolina secondary is just sitting at 9 yards and allowing DJ just to throw it on the outside, like they have done all time and time again this year.
Is DJ going to start? Has that been confirmed? Are they?
He was like.
Is Dabo being tight-lipped about that?
If Cade Klubnik were ready to be the guy, if they felt he was ready to be the guy, he'd be the guy.
I guess you're right.
He had one good game in which he did nothing. Like his biggest achievement was getting hit out of bounds and getting a face mask, and then he just threw a bad pick at Notre Dame. So again, Klubnik I just don't think is ready for it yet.
Yeah.
But DJ is he just does it. He's like throwing. Maybe he's a lefty. I don't know.
Just start trying. It's like shooting up, man. Matt, what are you going with?
I hate this game. I have no feel. 7.5 is a gross line. Like if Carolina plays like they have the last couple weeks, Clemson probably covers it grossly. But Carolina's defense is so bad and Clemson's offense is so bad. But which one's going to be less bad? I don't know. Just over, I guess, because I think both teams will kind of score and Drake May will play fine. But I hate this game. Like I'm gonna watch it, but I'm going to hate it.
I'm playing the over just because like North Carolina's defense stinks out loud. And I know we know Clemson's offense hasn't been good but like they haven't been bad. they've been bad a couple of times, but it hasn't been like bad last year.
Yeah.
Like they've had some games where their offense
Yeah,
is
you're right.
functional, and North Carolina's defense can make just about anybody look good. So I expect to see some points. I expect to see Drake May be able to do some things against this Clemson defense, and maybe these teams get fired up for this game and a trip to the Orange Bowl. But like something tells me this is just gonna be kind of a loosey goosey kind of weird game. So
I think that shows you how bad Clemson's offense was last year. If we're saying this year's offense is a step up from last year, which it clearly is a significant step up from last year.
Yeah. Also, I'd say the only thing that's worth watching on Clemson's offense is Will Shipley. If you watch him, he is a fun back
He's
to play.
fun to watch. I love watching
He
him.
plays so hard, so I'm hoping they really get him involved in the short screen game, and because I'd like to see him in some space against North Carolina, like trying to tackle him. He's not that big, but North Carolina's secondary, when a running back gets a full head of steam, they just get planted on their heels and just go backwards. If you just watch their defense as a former DB, it is just like brutal in every single aspect.
They should just cancel this game and make Notre Dame the ACC champion. Notre Dame beat both of them by 2 scores.
I don't want to see Notre Dame again.
And on that note, we're moving on to the
Just
Big Ten
make them
before
the ACC
the Notre
champion.
Dame conversation. The last game on the slate, Big Ten Purdue versus number 2 Michigan. Michigan a 16.5 point favorite. The total 52.5. Phil, I know we only have you for hopefully like less than 10 more minutes, so give us your pick in case this goes long. You have to head out. So what are you taking?
I mean, I don't fully love Michigan. It's hard for me to admit this, but they're playing good. They're playing really well. I like Michigan. I think they hopefully Purdue's defense decides to not do the Ohio State secondary and just get torched in man-to-man situations and cover zero, and then just keep running cover zero and cover zero situations, not getting pressure and getting torched. It was a really bold play by Jim Knowles last week, and it did not pay off. I think JJ McCarthy, I think those throws that he made were wide open, but it has to do a lot for his confidence in being able to hit some of the deep balls.
Yeah.
I think Blake Corum, he's going to be back? Is he still
I don't know. Like that's kind of my question with this too. Is he going to be back in some capacity? Is it going to be like last week where he gets 2 carries and he tests it out and is like, nah, I don't like, no one really seems to know. And I think that's just going to be the case until the game kicks off. I don't think anybody's going to know.
Yeah. And if you're Michigan, do you really push it with Blake Corum, knowing that, hey, we're going to be playing like all the games outside of Georgia in the college football playoff? If Blake Corum is healthy, like we should be able to play our brand of football and win. And so like, do they try to risk that, knowing like, hey, if he doesn't play, but we know we're going to be in the college football playoff no matter what? So do we risk it and just focus on getting him healthy for that game, even if it's at the cost of potentially us getting upset? So I like Michigan in this. I don't love the minus 16.5. So I'm leaning towards taking Purdue in the 16.5 points. But I don't think Michigan's on upset alert. They're playing good. They're playing hard. They're playing smart. Their defense is playing fast. Purdue obviously wants to and loves to play spoiler in these moments and usually has one of these moments each year. I just don't think it's this one. I think they score late to cover the 16.5.
I'm going to take the over here because I'm not sure if Corum's going to play, but obviously we saw Edwards is a very, very good second running back for them. And he's like I think I said last week, he could start on a lot of teams in the country. So I think they'll be fine being able to run the ball. I think JJ gained some confidence last week with, hitting the open receivers and having that big day throwing the ball. But I think Purdue's going to score too. I think they're going to come to play. Obviously, there's the emotional. It's going to be an emotional game for Aiden O'Connell and that offense and that team. So I think they're going to come ready to play, and they're probably going to have some moments early. But I think eventually Michigan's just going to be the better team and kind of overrun them. That I'm not going to touch the 16.5 because I have no idea. I could see Michigan winning by 30. I could see, like Phil said, Purdue covering late with a weird touchdown where Michigan doesn't care. I'm going to take the over just because I think Michigan scores a lot early, and I think Purdue's going to be able to score a little bit as well.
My clip it moment of the week is have Charlie Jones score a late touchdown to cover late. I'm just going to say that because Charlie Jones has been electric to watch this year, and just goes to show how poorly utilized he was at Iowa from Kirk and Sons.
Anybody who watches him play football as a wide receiver recruit and still wants to go to Iowa is just mind-boggling to me.
Well, the best receiver on their team just entered the portal because, of course, he did. Michigan's going to kick the shit out of him.
Probably.
They're going to kick the shit out of him. Like, Purdue's a 7-5 team for a reason. They lost by 3 scores to Iowa. They were down 3 scores to Wisconsin before a couple of late touchdowns in that game. Michigan, it's the same thing that happened last year. Like, they built to the Ohio State game. They kicked Ohio State's ass in the second half of that game. They're going to have a ton of confidence. I wouldn't play Blake Corum. I don't think, like, I'm more concerned about like Donald Edwards' hand because, like, the dude.
Yeah, is he like fully healed or what's?
I don't know what the deal is. He had 2 80-yard touchdowns with one hand against Ohio State, which was kind of awesome. I don't think Purdue's got the talent level, and like it's interesting because they're the one team in the West that can play offense,
score.
But like the talent level's just not there for the talent level. There's a huge discrepancy there. Michigan's a really well coached team. I think they're motivated. I think they're going to be very excited about the fact that if they win this game, they are going to very likely avoid Georgia until the national championship game. If it gets that far for them, I think they're extremely highly motivated playing a team that is not nearly as good as they are. I'm laying them with Michigan. I think they're going to win by 3 or 4 scores. That's what it is. So our tiebreaker in this, because I know Phil's got to go, our tiebreaker is going to be the total number of points scored in Akron Buffalo tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Phil, how many points? Akron. Price is Right rules too, just to clarify so that it's on tape. Price is Right, so closest without going over.
I'm going 57.5.
You have to pick an exact number.
Scored. You have to pick the exact number. You can't score half.
I'm telling you, pick the over/under, Phil.
Yeah. Sorry,
you can't score half a point in football.
Shit, I'm going Buffalo 31, Akron, and this probably is going to dispute my over/under 31, 26.
So 57 points.
Yeah.
Could have just
look at you, Matt.
A lot of trouble. Matt.
54.
You sons of guns. I actually wrote down 57 as my number yesterday. So I'm going to go 1. No, I'm going to go 50. No, I'm going to go since I am going to go last, I'm going to go 49.
Ooh,
so that way, and if none of us get it, then we'll figure something else out.
We didn't think about the possibility of just going way under.
We'll
cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah, I guess at that point we will have to. Then I will have to win, I guess, because I would be the closest. I don't know. If we all go over, I don't know. I didn't really think this through all the way. But last thing I'll leave you with, because I wanted to bring this up and I just forgot to do it at the beginning of the show because I was so enamored with that other game. The other day, Maryland and Rutgers, they played at the same time as Ohio State and Michigan did. 97,000 people watched that game on the Big Ten Network, which means that more people watched Michigan and Ohio State play inside the stadium than watched Rutgers and Maryland play on television.
That's pretty wild.
That's great.
It's not that surprising, but pretty wild.
Yeah.
Is not so. That's all we
have.
Shout
out 12-team college football playoff coming, by the way.
We do have a 12-team, which is awesome. Very excited about that.
Round 1 home games too. That's going to be big.
Yeah,
that was rumored, but the fact that's a thing is awesome.
They have to let this bowl deal expire soon enough so that way they can have the. The only weird thing is like a shitty, like if let's say Purdue wins this game on Saturday, they might be hosting a playoff game, and then Georgia would be playing in a bowl game as the 1 seed, which is the only weird thing to me. Like they need to do the first 2 rounds at home, and I think they'll get there eventually. That would be, and then you can do the semifinals. It's fine. Like
Georgia will just be playing in the Peach Bowl anyway, so it'll be a home game.
Fair, that's fair. But like that may be a bad example, but you know what I mean. Like
yes, I know.
Playing in your home stadium would mean a lot. 90,000 people at Sanford Stadium for a playoff game would be sick. And also, then like,
just for anyone who tries to speak out against this, I hate you because more football is better than less football. That's the only argument that I ever will need to hear.
Do you know, like, if this was for the play, literally the entirety of this conference championship weekend would matter towards the college football playoff. If this, like, if people are saying it would make there be less meaningful games, that's not true. It would make every single Power 5/UCF Tulane conference championship game matter. What are we talking about?
USC and TCU by Phil.
Later, Phil.
We've got to run. My last point on this.
Bye, corporate Phil.
My last point on this. So TCU and USC would be the only teams who would be affected in the opposite direction. They'd both be locked in. But that means Utah can play their way in. That means Kansas State can play their way in. LSU, Clemson,
Purdue,
North Carolina, Purdue, and then the winner of Tulane and Cincinnati. So that basically means the Sun Belt, the MAC, Conference USA and the Mountain West. The 4 of the 6 are the only ones that don't really have. And you might be in a situation where in some years, like maybe Boise State's a little better than they were this year, and if they might need a better win than Tulane has, or if like Tulane is 9-2 and Boise State's 11-1 and Boise State loses and Tulane wins, like you might even get that 7th game mattering. So my only concern, one, player safety. These are unpaid players. Pay the kids their damn money. And like, if the playoff is not affiliated with the NCAA, which it is not, they should be allowed to give them NIL money and just pay the players. Because like, why the hell not? And then my concerns are less. More football is good. The reality is that the worst possible number is usually 4. Like, I think 2 is a better number most of the time than we've seen than 4. But 4 is a bad number because usually I would say there's like 5 or 6 teams that could be the 4 seed, and there's really usually like 2 or 3 teams that could win the national championship.
Yeah, so, I like 12. I think 12 is a good number because you know what? Is Purdue? If Purdue wins this week, would they ever get to a national championship? No, but like, what if they won another game? And like that would make that would make for a pretty darn cool story. And honestly, who the hell wouldn't sign up for a Michigan Ohio State? Like, for saying that game wouldn't matter. It would absolutely matter because the one team would get a bye. Like Michigan would now have a bye and have to play one less game. And who the hell wouldn't sign up for a second round matchup of Michigan and Ohio State in a bowl game?
Exactly.
I think that would then again top what they did on Fox last week. Like, it would go ahead and break more records, being another like one of the more highly viewed games. Like everybody would sign up.
Be on ESPN and cable, but
fair.
Like,
but you know what I mean. You know,
like, I'm just being a smart ass. But like, yeah, exactly. And like, what if like Alabama ends up on the road at Purdue and it's 13 degrees and snowy in West Lafayette, and like you have to watch Bryce Young trying to throw through a fucking blizzard? Like, give me that. Who cares, man?
It's fun.
More college football is better.
Exactly.
Also,
and it does.
Who wins the national champion? You're watching it wrong, but nevertheless, this makes it better.
Yeah, and I don't buy either. Like it devalues the regular season. It actually makes other games a whole lot more important because when Ohio State and Michigan play, is it quite as important as it was last Saturday? No, but it still holds a lot of value. And this way,
Ohio State.
Yeah, and this way it also and like up until 4 or 5 years ago, it never had anything to do with the playoff. It was still the biggest game you watched all year. Now though, like when Mississippi State and that's probably a bad one, but like when Purdue and Illinois play 3 weeks ago, and there's actually stuff on the line, like Big Ten West positioning on the line. That, you know how much more important that game because 2 weeks ago it's a 12-team playoff as opposed to now. Because not only are you playing for a Big Ten championship, but if you win that, you go to playoff. Like it makes all the other games below the top 3 or 4 teams in the country matter so much more.
Right, and
that is our playoff argument.
Tell those kids at Tennessee, tell those fans at Tennessee that their game against Alabama had less meaning because it might have knocked Alabama out of the playoff. Like in the moment, the games are awesome. It's not the NFL where nothing matters in the regular season because there's so many games. It's completely different. So Patrick says, to be fair, 2 teams that got a combined 90 dropped on their heads by Spencer Rattler would be involved. That is true, but nevertheless, like I'm not opposed to the idea of if he were healthy, watching Hendon Hooker sling the pill around the yard a little bit more. Also, my last thing before we go, because we do need to wrap this. Did you see Ohio State said we don't want to go to the Rose Bowl?
Seriously?
Yeah, they opted. They said we'd prefer to go to the Orange Bowl. I guess because last year their attendance, they sold so few tickets, and I'd imagine the excitement for it would be even lower this year. They don't really want to embarrass themselves with the Big Ten again, so they said send us to the Orange Bowl where we can. We don't give a shit about no one in the Big Ten gives a shit about the Orange Bowl. So it looks like we're probably going to end up with Penn State in the Rose Bowl. I just thought that was kind of funny. Ohio State's like the first time ever someone said don't send us to the Rose Bowl.
That's very Ohio State of them.
Ohio State. That's why nobody likes
Ohio State of them.
Yep, it is. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it. Do we want to get together at some point next week and recap these games?
We will definitely at some point have to get back together next week because we'll have obviously to recap, but then like bowl games get going in a couple weeks after that, so probably have to map out a show there too. But yeah, we'll do something next week to maybe we'll recap some games. Also, maybe maybe get an Army Navy pick in there as well.
Yeah, we'll have to do that as well. I have no feel like under.
Yeah, just root for the under. Just pick the under. We've talked about
an argument
Talk
for a
Service
side.
Academy
Yeah,
unders.
you have to bet the fucking under. There's no
Yeah.
way to do it.
We'll come up with we'll each come up with like an alt under, and whoever's hits that gets something. I don't know.
That would be awesome. All right, well, that's gonna do it for us. We appreciate Corporate Phil being able to stop in for overwhelming majority of the show. That was awesome. We miss having him around. But
like us on the YouTube for Corporate Phil.
Yep. Give us a thumbs up on the YouTube. Subscribe to our channel if you aren't already. Go like our YouTube shorts. Sure, why not? I don't know. But on that note,
TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Exactly. For Phil, for Matt, I'm Dan. We will talk to you and recap these games next week.